What's up and welcome to Smart Money. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the HEREOS Act in 2020. I'm going to tell you what it is, how it's different from other stimulus bills, and whether or not you'll get it. Stay tuned. You've been hearing a lot about stimulus bills for the past few weeks. The first one was the CARES Act signed into law in March. That was the law that gave many Americans a $1,200 stimulus check. That bill helped many people, but the overwhelming consensus was that it didn't go far enough. Since then, we've heard a lot about other stimulus plans. There was the Emergency Money for the People Act, the Automatic Boost for Communities Act, and the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. We've discussed the first two at length on this channel. The issue with the proposed bills is that they've been too liberal to get through a conservative Senate and signed into law by a conservative president. However, a new bill has emerged that may have the ability to succeed where the other bills have failed. It would take a real hero to come up with something that a very divided nation can agree on. But it seems that the House of Representatives has delivered just that. The Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions, or HEROES Act, is the latest in a wave of stimulus packages being debated in Congress. You can prove your worth as a hero by clicking the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. Clicking the like button is a great way to support the channel and to show yourself as a crusader of personal finance. If you're new to the channel, or if you've been watching for a while, thanks for joining us. I'd like to see where our viewers are from. Comment your city and state and country in the comments section. The HEROES Act will offer many forms of assistance that our nation currently needs. One of the first things the HEROES Act will do is to protect the nation's over 40 million renters by banning eviction for non-payment for a year after the date the bill passes into law. The bill also supports homeowners by allotting $75 billion of homeowners assistance to prevent default and foreclosures. Most notably, the HEROES Act bolsters renters by providing $100 billion in rental assistance. These funds will be administered by an existing nationwide grant rental assistance program that will verify the need of all applicants and distribute vouchers to cover the cost of rent and utilities. There are currently 36.5 million Americans unemployed at the time of this writing. The HEROES Act aims to extend unemployment benefits provided by the CARES Act. Most importantly, it will extend the $600 per week federal unemployment benefit until January 2021. The unemployment benefit will continue to be extended to gig workers, independent contractors, part-time workers, and the self-employed through March 2021. Originally, the CARES Act deferred student loan payments for people with select federal student loans until September 30th, 2020. The HEROES Act will continue to defer payment up to September 2021 for all federal student loans, including HELL loans not owned by the Department of Education, some FFEL program loans, and federal Perkins loans. Most notably, the HEROES Act seeks to cancel up to $10,000 of student loan debt for some federal and private student loan debt holders. The $10,000 of debt cancellation will be applied to the loans with the highest interest rates and then to the loans with the highest principal balance if debt holders don't specify otherwise. What most viewers might find exciting is that the HEROES Act has a provision to include a second round of stimulus payments up to $6,000 per household. Much like with the first round of payments, people with an adjusted gross income of up to $75,000 per year will receive a one-time check for $1,200. Basically, if you were able to receive the first round of stimulus checks, you'll be eligible to receive the second round. However, if you have an AGI of $99,000 or more, or are married with an AGI of over $198,000, you will not receive a stimulus check. Things are a little different this time around though. The first round of stimulus checks excluded adult dependents, many of whom were college students. The HEROES Act allows for up to 3 dependents, regardless of age, to also receive $1,200. So this time, college students would receive benefits. Also, the first round of stimulus payments left out immigrants with taxpayer identification numbers, or TINs. The HEROES Act, if passed into law, would include them. Arguably, the most noteworthy portion of the HEROES Act is the HEROES Fund. This $200 billion fund gives hazard pay to some essential workers. This hazard pay comes in the form of an additional $13 per hour pay premium on top of the worker's regular pay rate. This pays for all hours worked in essential industries through the end of 2020, valuing up to $25,000 for essential employees earning less than $200,000 per year, and up to $5,000 for essential workers earning more than $200,000 per year. The HEROES Act sounds like an answer to the prayers of many Americans. However, it's important to remember that the act hasn't been signed into law yet. The HEROES Act only narrowly passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 208 to 199 on May 15th. One has to also consider that the bill contains another $3 trillion of economic aid. This is in addition to the $6 trillion MSN.com says the United States has spent on stopping the country's economic downturn. The world event I'm calling the Big Obvious, for YouTube reasons, is among the most significant events in the past 100 years. However, it's not the only economic event taking place in the United States. Bloomberg.com says that the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget predicts that the national deficit, the shortfall between how much money the country makes and spends, will be $3.8 trillion this year if Congress doesn't engage in any more stimulus spending. That might not sound like a lot of money to some people, but it's 18.7% of our country's gross domestic product. The United States hasn't spent this much as a percentage of its GDP since World War II. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget goes on to predict that the national debt could increase to over 100% of the country's $21 trillion economy by October 2021. The committee also estimates that nearly 37 million Americans out of work, the GDP is likely to shrink by 3.9% when compared to fiscal year 2019. Regardless of anyone's personal feelings toward our politicians, this is among the considerations that the Senate and the President have to take into account before signing the HEREOS Act into law. With the HEREOS Act, increasing national debt and deficit, as well as a shrinking GDP, there are a lot of moving parts making any kind of recommendation as to the best way forward for the country. Please also remember that I'm not an economist or a politician. With that said, I'm going to take my best shot at recommending a solution for moving forward. I'd recommend that the Senate and the President sign the HEREOS Act into law on the condition that everyone understands that there will be difficult decisions made in the country's future regarding its economy. It's important that the United States wins the war against the big obvious. If we want to spend like we're at war, we might as well treat the problem like we're at war in other regards. Bloomberg.com noted that the United States hasn't spent this much as a percentage of its GDP since World War II, and I feel like that's an important comparison. When World War II ended in 1945, the country had just come out of the Great Depression and one of the most expensive conflicts the world has ever seen. The United States took some important steps in revitalizing its economy. Most notably, the U.S. sold victory bonds and expanded the middle class by making college and housing affordable. The United States needs to fight the big obvious with every weapon available to it, but it can't do that if it's concerned about the fiscal impact of those actions. I would support a program similar to a victory bond program where the United States sells a portion of its debt in the form of bonds to Americans. The bonds will mature over time. The longer the bonds are held, the more interest they'd accrue, and perhaps they'd fully mature sometime around 2040. I would also like to see the middle class expanded. This was done through the introduction of the Montgomery GI Bill after World War II. The GI Bill allowed veterans to be able to afford to go to college and seek high-skilled, high-paying jobs. The 21st century equivalent to this would be making higher education affordable or even free for Americans going to college today. This was the case in the United States up until fairly recently. Community colleges were free up until 1984 in the U.S. In-state public schools were charging $4,563 on average for the 1984-1985 school year. That amount would be $11,365.47 in 2020, which is still roughly half the average $20,770 price tag of public colleges in the United States for the 2017-2018 semester. In another parallel of World War II, the VA home loan made buying a house affordable for veterans returning home from the war. This could be duplicated today by forgiving the $1.6 trillion student loan debt in the United States. Many Americans make student loan debt payments that are roughly equivalent to mortgage payments. Essentially, they're paying for a house that they will never own, keeping them from buying a home and paying taxes and fees that come with home ownership. Forgiving this debt will cause the majority of the 44 million Americans who owe student loans to purchase homes once the crisis ends. The House of Representatives narrowly passed the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions, or HEROES Act, on May 15th. The act still needs to be voted on in the Senate and signed into law by the President. It offers many features that the CARES Act did, like giving Americans another $1,200 stimulus check. But this time, it aims to help more people by enhancing eligibility for payments, giving hazard pay to essential workers, and keeping people in their homes. The HEROES Act is nice, but it's not free. It comes with a $3 trillion price tag. This, in addition to the country's other obligations, could put the U.S. at having a debt higher than its GDP. This hasn't occurred since World War II. I believe World War II solutions, with a modern spin, would help solve our 21st century debt problems. Well, that's my video on the HEREOS Act of 2020. I appreciate you watching. Let me know any questions, comments, or topic suggestions you might have on personal finance in the comments below. Be sure to support us on all of our social media platforms. Follow us on YouTube and now on Facebook at Smart Money. Links will be in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I come out with new content. Thanks again for all the support in the comment section, and a special thanks to Vandal Savage, who's our featured comment for this week. Make sure you join the discussion for a chance to have your comment featured. I read and reply to all the comments I get. Make sure you like the video for the algorithm and be sure to share the video with a friend. Check the links in the description for offer information. Lastly, the stock market is set up perfectly to buy stocks at a discount right now. Even if you're just curious and looking to start with $100 or even less, I'd recommend using Robinhood. It's completely free, plus if you use my link in the description, you get a free stock just for opening up an account. It's a win-win. Comment below and let me know what you get. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.